Hello everyone, welcome back to GGN. This is part 4 for this news report today. It's Wednesday, January 23rd, 2013. I'm Darko. My website's ggnonline.com, and on YouTube it's ddarko2012, and for not much longer really, 2013. Okay, we left off with some pretty crazy stories. You had Sir David warning that mankind is a plague on the earth, reiterating what Prince Philip said in 1984, saying that humanity is reaching plague proportions. So it's like, where do you think this comes from? Well, and talking about an Oxford professor saying they want to genetically alter unborn babies' personalities as a moral obligation. Not just that, but physically, making them smaller, taking capsules and stuff like that so that they don't crave meat and stuff, while they themselves would be, they'll be nice and tall, and they'll be healthy, and they'll be eating organic meat and stuff and produce. IBM Watson caught using swear words like bullshit. So it says IBM learned a rather strange lesson when it comes to teaching artificial intelligence-enabled computers to understand the slangs used by humans, as it was recently revealed by Eric Brown that they had to develop a filter to keep Watson from swearing. So, but it goes on here and it says that he believed that the ability to understand slangs would probably be an ultimate test that would ensure that Watson could understand the way real people communicate. There was a slight problem, though, as the dictionary was made up of swear words along with nasty and dirty words, which the Watson learned as well. The end result, Watson couldn't distinguish between polite language and profanity, which the Urban Dictionary is full of, revealed Brown in an interview. He said he picked up some bad habits from reading Wikipedia as well, and tests had even used the word bullshit in an answer to a research query. Not only did they have to develop a filter that would stop the supercomputer from swearing, but also had to scrape the entire Urban Dictionary from the computer's memory. Then when you have the CCHR, Citizens Commission on Human Rights, exposes exorbitant psychiatric military spending to create super soldiers. This is in mainstream media, PR Web, 4 hours to go. So, but they announced the last in a 4-part series by investigative journalists exploring how the nation's military forces have been used as guinea pigs for psychological and pharmaceutical experiments. This last installment looks at the long-standing relationship between the military and psychiatry that has been in place since World War II, and the research that's been conducted on U.S. soldiers. We already know about this, the effort to create super soldiers, spending lots of money to create science fiction-esque experimentation. They tell the public that it's science fiction while they're actually doing it. Another interesting article from ExplosiveReports.com. Captain Kirk's predecessor, Star Trek, was RAND Corporation Predictive Programming. Pretty interesting. Most of you know him. He was the Captain Pike, the first one that preceded William Shatner in Star Trek. He stated the series was based on the RAND Corporation's projection of things to come. His actor Jeffrey Hunter played Christopher Pike in the Star Trek pilot of The Cage. He told the Hollywood Columnist in January of '65 that he hoped the pilot episode would be picked up as a series because he was intrigued by the fact that the series was based on the RAND Corporation's projection of things to come. Says, we should know within several weeks whether the show has been sold. He said almost a half-century ago. It will be an hour long in color with regular casts or half dozen or so and important guest stars each week, he stated hopefully. The thing that intrigues me is that it's actually based on the RAND Corporation's projection of things to come. Except for the fictional characters, it will be like getting a look into the future, and some of the predictions will surely come true in our lifetime. It says, according to one Star Trek dedicated site, the involvement of the RAND Corporation in the series was limited to technical advice by RAND researcher. Says Trek Place points out, Lynn provided Star Trek's original series creator Gene Roddenberry with scientific and technical advice during the pre-production of the series. Let me go in there and talk about actually how the bridge, the original, bridge was designed by the RAND Corporation. But what's interesting is that this Hunter was actually talking about what? About a projection of things to come. So how it's going to affect our culture and all that stuff, and not so much the actual technical aspects of it. And next is an article I've been waiting to get to. Space travel may hasten Alzheimer's and astronauts. We keep hearing about volunteers for Mars, a one-way trip, right? A new study has unraveled that astronauts are threatened by cognitive problems in the brain due to prolonged cosmic radiation exposure in their missions. And moving on, another interesting article, 300 million year old UFO tooth wheel found in Russian city of Vladivostok. And when I first heard this article, it didn't say anything about UFOs, which makes me wonder if they just put that on there to make it seem like it's not real. But it says, lightening the fire during a cold winter evening, a resident found a rail-shaped metal detail that was pressed into one of the pieces of coal that the man used to heat his home. So he said here that he took it to scientists, and after the metal object was studied by leading experts, the man was shocked to learn that it was supposedly 300 million years old, and yet scientists suggest that it was not created by nature, but was rather manufactured by someone. The question of who might have made an aluminum gear in the dawn of time remains unanswered. The dawn of time, right? You're talking about Neanderthals, cavemen, and stuff like that. That's another thing. I think that there was humans were living side by side. I mean, they're starting to admit that now with Neanderthals. They weren't just, you know, one died out and then, oh, here comes another one, right? They were actually living next to each other. So let's say this was back in the dawn of time. There were UFOs or whatever, people from different planets or different parts of the star system. These Neanderthals and cavemen would have actually seen them. But, you know, hey, I'm just theorizing here, so don't say, oh, this is what you believe, you know. You know, the stuff that I read in the news here, a lot of it's true, so you don't have to agree with everything that I say. Google aims to replace, my thing is I just want to know where we came from, you know, I want to know the truth. So, but it says here, Google aims to replace passwords with ID ring. So the struggle to remember several long and increasingly complicated passwords simply to carry out everyday web tasks could soon become a thing of the past if Google gets its way and introduces a ring that can confirm your identity online. Well, it's nice until it becomes mandatory. Or, really what? This is what it's all about. Everything's about coercion and collectivism. Not that collectivism is bad, it's just that it's you're living in a society where everybody is being coerced and forced into it. So the thing is that it will be so that so many people voluntarily accept this that nobody else will be able to get onto it anymore because the technology will be outdated. An iPhone 6 will have a fingerprint sensor included. So iPhone 6 fingerprint sensor rumored to be included in the next iPhone as early as June. So just like this article was talking about, which was what? It was about security, right? And the next one, it goes on here and it says that it will launch, this new iPhone 6 will include a fingerprint sensor for security. All right, next up we have a chip. It says a startup in Corvallis, Oregon has developed a small chip that can turn the body heat into electric energy. In the future, your clothes will be a power plant, never run on batteries or never run out of batteries again. So it's not science fiction, fantasy, it's real. So absorb the heat from your body, and that heat is funneled through a thermoelectric generator that converts into electrical power. So it goes on here and it says they're going to have bookless libraries. Paper books have lost their allure and future generations may have little use for them. Oh yeah, that's what they said in what, was it H.G. Wells' Time Machine that? So when he embarked on a mission to create a countrywide library system, he decided it should be bookless from the start. If you want to get an idea what it looks like, go into an Apple store. It'll be the nation's first bookless library system. So right until the EMP strikes or the after Singularity takes over and the AI or Skynet or DARPA takes over, what happens? Well, all those books are gone. Google Android baked into rice cookers in Move Past Phone. So Android software, most widely used smartphone operating system, is making a leap to rice cookers and refrigerators as manufacturers vie to dominate the market for gadgets controlled via the internet. I guess I would just imagine and go on a limb here that it's going to be like a movie I saw recently where people actually had their cell phones attached to their hands. I don't know, that wasn't In Time, but it was a futuristic type movie where they had their cell phones in their hands. Oh yeah, that's what it was, Total Recall. Just more programming, you know. It's funny because like you've seen like the teenagers or whatever, the quote poor people, the plebes, next to Colin Farrell, and they're like, ooh, cool, that's awesome. But he was peeling it out of his hand, right? Wasn't he? So I'm sure that's going to be good for, you know, Wi-Fi frequencies, not just pulsing from a distance, but actually emanating from you. Kind of like this, your clothes will be a power plant. So it goes on here and it says that chip generates enough power to power anything from an accelerometer in your pedometer to the wireless headset to your smartphone. So, switching gears here, this is not a joke. Newsweek on its cover declares Obama inauguration the second coming. So, but it goes on here and says that in the cover, I never saw it before, but How Women Will Save Europe from January 18th, 2013, Newsweek inauguration 2013. Remember before he actually had a halo? Remember that picture? The second coming America expects, can he deliver? So they built up a messiah, right? You know what? I was going to go to somewhere else, but I'll just roll with it here. I'll roll with these two articles. 25 signs American women are being destroyed by the sexual revolution and our promiscuous culture. So has the sexual revolution been good for American women? Well, here at the end of American Dream, they say not at all. In fact, when you look at the facts, it becomes clear that the sexual revolution has been an absolute disaster for American women. And the U.S. men have been trained to be, or to primarily view women as sex objects, which is true, and our culture has become exceedingly promiscuous. It is pretty bad when when guys, especially the big muscle heads, they don't just go out to look for girls, because usually a lot of them will have girlfriends. They'll actually go out to just basically to flex against guys. It's really, really weird. Not just putting the vibe out for women that they supposedly can't have, but putting out the vibe for men. Anyways, I think that's just part of the agenda there, the feminist agenda of men, and the masculating of women. As a result, the U.S. leads the world in teen pregnancy, 19 million new STD infections every year, and they got a vaccine for that. They won't actually do anything for it. More than half of all children born to women under the age of 30 are being born out of wedlock and are witnessing the systematic breakdown of the family unit in America. And yet, anyone that tries to teach our young women that they should dress modestly, and keep themselves pure for marriage is severely criticized. So, and that's true. You actually remember that lord in the UK that was saying, or one of the politicians in the UK saying, what's up with all these gay rights crap? They represent less than 1% of the population, like Zionists, and yet there's this whole overrepresentation of them. What about the crumbling of our society and our family and our culture? How about a push for that? How about rights of the family? The consequences of teaching our young women that they should be free to run around and sleep with a whole bunch of different men have been dramatic. And of course, like I said, this is say the same thing. They could do the same article about men. The following are 25 signs that American women are being destroyed by the sexual revolution. So we saw some of them. You go in there and check it out. Through all the STDs and what it costs in healthcare. Amazingly, 1 out of every 5 teen girls in the U.S. actually wants to be a mother. It says here, when men don't have to wait until they get married to have sex, they're likely to delay marriage and probably never get married at all. It says only 51% of all Americans that are at least 18 years old are currently married. Back in 1960, it was 72%. So today, an all-time low of 44% of all Americans between 25 and 34 are married. It goes on here, it says America has the highest divorce rate on the globe. It says more than 1 out of every 4 children in the U.S. is being raised by a single parent. It says overall, more than 50 million babies have been killed in America since Roe versus Wade was decided in 1973. Interesting thing that someone told me was that you got to remember all of these children that would have been born had these babies not been aborted. So instead of 50 million, you would have had about another 300 million. Imagine that. We would be at about 600 million, possibly a billion. And we always hear about India and China. Well, why do you think they started this back in the day? Because they knew we had money, we could prosper, right? In the 60s and the 50s. And so they already started this population reduction agenda back then, right? Really started to take hold in the 70s with all the drugs and liberalization and all that stuff. Free love, I think it's called. You got to remember, it's like that was the counter building up to what was going on in China and India. They knew that they were going to start doing it, like with the one-child policy. When did it start? In China, 1979. Imagine how much of a real threat America really would be to the establishment if there was more people. Girls recap says murder why is in an annoying way. I don't know what the hell that means, but this is unbelievable. But it just goes on and says the episode opens with George dumping Elijah, who just admitted that he just had sex with Marnie over Elijah's protestations, that it was like 3 pumps, like 2.5 pumps, and then I lost my boner. George rightly notes that Elijah is still confused, pretending there's a chance he's bi, and George has gone through all that already himself and doesn't want to deal with it. On the 40th anniversary of Roe versus Wade, in first, majority of Americans say keep abortion legal. In Ireland, there's an estimated 25,000 that attended a Vigil for Life event, and in America they were celebrating. But it's still really hard for poor women to get abortions in the U.S. Women report having to borrow money from friends and family to forego paying rent, groceries, and utilities to pay for their abortions. Despite protests, Slain Kansas Abortion Docs Clinic is reopening. Thank you.